I'm Chad, and you're watching Squarebody Stuff. All right, we are going to do some more work on 339. Hopefully get it finished soon. I know there might be a few of you that's kind of give up on it, but I've just had a lot of stuff going on and just kind of put it to the side, and now I've got time to work on it. I'm gonna work on it. Yeah. Pretty much the bottom end is done, short block's done, water pump's on, camshaft, all that good stuff. All we got left to do is the cylinder heads. I've got to do some port matching on the intake side. I'm gonna clean up the bowls a little bit. Just do a little cleanup on them. I'm not gonna go major port work on these. And I'm gonna probably change out some valve springs. But that's kind of on down the road. Right now in this video, I'm gonna kind of do just a little bit of a how to set up your gaskets to do port matching to your intake manifold. Are we rolling? Okay, so what we got here, the intake I'm using is a Victor, an Edelbrock Victor 4+4. This is an old school single plane high-rise intake. It's got rather large ports on it. The intake gaskets I'm using are Felpro 1206s. And you can see on this intake, get in there, that they match the intake fairly decent. But when we move the gasket over to the cylinder head, we got a little bit of room. We got some stuff to take off the intake to get these things matched up. Now you could run it this way if you wanted to, if you didn't want to go through the work of port matching, but you're going to leave a little bit on table as far as horsepower. And it doesn't take a whole lot. I'm going to show you how I do this, and it comes out pretty good, because the issue you have sometimes is getting your gasket lined up on your head, lined up on your intake, then we put it all together. How do you keep it all lined up? That's what I'm going to show you. All right, so the first step I do is line up your intake gasket on your intake, and just take some masking tape, tape it down nice and secure to where you're not going to be getting into where you're going to drill. It's a lot easier to line it up on your intake, especially in this case where my intake ports are really close to my gaskets. I'm not sure if I'm going to take a whole lot off of the intake itself. I would rather have the intake just a little bit smaller than the heads. I may just kind of radius these corners a little bit, kind of clean them up, but it's a pretty good match between the gaskets and the intake. I know we got our intake gaskets where we want them to match the intake. You could obviously do the same thing, vice versa, whichever works out best. I try to do it where what the intake gasket matches the best. Say the cylinder heads were way bigger than our intake manifold, we're wanting to do that, so I would match them up to the intake or the cylinder heads first. But on this case, we're going to do the intake. Once you get them taped down real good where I want them lined up on the intake, I will center punch a couple holes. I've already got one drilled here. I've actually got the other side drilled too. There's a little pinhole there. And we'll go ahead and drill this one real quick. The gaskets are good and lined up with the intake. We even out the intake where we want it. Alright, we got the holes drilled in our intake and the gaskets fastened to the intake where we want it. Gaskets are lined up, and I've got the intake bolted down with just a bolt in each corner and one in the middle, so it's not going to go anywhere. Now we can take our drill. There we go. There it is. And I just put a piece of tape on there for a stop. I don't want to go much deeper than that. Just go through the hole you've already drilled. And go through each corner. That way, whenever you get done, you'll have holes for these little pins to go in there. These are just 1/8 inch pieces of rod that will slide in there. I'll get these holes drilled. I'll take a vacuum cleaner, suck up my shavings and all that stuff, get everything clean. We'll pull the intake back off, and I'll show you how why these are really important. And now, when I go to transfer my lines onto this cylinder head, I know that this gasket is lined exactly up with my intake. Everything is lined up good, and I can transfer my lines for doing the port matching. To install this intake, whenever everything's done, you can still use these holes and make sure everything lines right back up where it's supposed to. You just put your intake gaskets on. I usually try to put a little RTV or Pookie, whatever you want to call it, around the intake ports or the water passages. Get it on there, get your intake set on. Once you put your RTV on your China walls or whatever, get your intake on, and then you could use those pins to put in there, hold everything where it's supposed to be while you torque the intake down. That way you know your gaskets and everything's all lined up with your port work, and yeah, just that much little more to make it better. Does that make sense? That much. Anyways, it's good stuff to do. Try it out, see what you think. All right, appreciate you guys watching. Hope you learned something on this. Thanks to my cameraman, Shelman. I don't always have a cameraman in the shop with me, so it's nice to have him run the camera for me and kind of getting in there. It makes it easier for me, so I don't have to try to set the camera up and all that stuff. So appreciate his help, and yeah, hopefully this will help you out if you're going to do any port matching, all that stuff. So till next time, y'all keep your square bodies rolling. We'll catch you later.